Hi, Dr. Alex here, and welcome to a music video on not a Marlin guitar, as one might expect from what I said in previous videos in this series, but in fact what is a late 60s Woolworths Audition guitar made by a Japanese company called Teisco, as far as I can tell. Pronunciation of Japanese isn't that great. And I've decided to make this now because I recently discovered what a great sound it can make, even though I've owned it for several years and used it on many occasions. Now, as many of you are aware probably by now, I have multiple Stratocaster copies in my guitar collection, and you might be wondering why I have this semi-acoustic for any reason at all. And the reason goes back to my two main guitar heroes, both Jimi Hendrix and Ritchie Blackmore. Jimi Hendrix, of course, is famous for using predominantly Strats, albeit normally right-handed Strats played left-handed, but still Stratocasters. However, he did use, on occasion, a Black Widow, which was a semi-acoustic guitar, in profile and shape not dissimilar to this Woolworths guitar I have here, this Audition Semi-acoustic. Even more similar, in terms of its form, Ritchie Blackmore, as well as using Strats all the time, largely probably influenced by both Hendrix and Eric Clapton, in terms of finally adopting the Strat almost exclusively. He also started with, and kept playing with Deep Purple for some time, a Gibson ES-335, which in shape and form looks very much like this guitar, only this is a lot cheaper. The cheapness I've just mentioned does play an important part. I wanted, therefore, a semi-acoustic to complete the collection so that I had something like the guitars they were using when they weren't using a Strat. However, Gibson ES-335s, Black Widows are expensive guitars, and much of my life has been spent doing things on the cheap. I am not a wealthy individual. I do not have pots of cash flying around, so all my guitars have been bought on the cheap. This is in fact probably one of the most expensive guitars I've ever bought. Again, though, like most of my guitars, off eBay, and this was £80 off eBay about, 9 years ago. So this was, one of the most pricey guitars I've ever bought, but it does have a tremolo bar, which was the other stipulation I wanted. Much like Blackmore's Gibson ES-335, I wanted a semi-acoustic that had a trem system, and they seem to be the most expensive of all. Very expensive, even second-hand, let alone buying them brand new. So £80, still a bargain, more so than I realised, as I'll come on to now. Now, as I say, I've had this for several years, and I have used it. For example, I used it in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, where I played the main theme on this, where it was rigged up both with a microphone to the amplifier played distorted and also a mic directly pointed at the guitar itself, so you got the kind of acoustic sound coming out simultaneously. I then blended both those together, recorded simultaneously, and that gave me the sound I wanted for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy theme used in those videos. However, beyond that, apart from using it as my work guitar, this was my original work guitar before it got replaced with another Marlin Sidewinder, I haven't really used this guitar very much. I pick it up from time to time because the sound's nice and it can be played without the amplifier and be quite loud and has a reasonable sound, but I never really appreciated its sound until very recently. Now, to return to my hero for a second, Ritchie Blackmore, at least in guitar terms, his sound changed over the years as he migrated from the Gibson through to using the Strat, but for a large chunk in the early 70s, he had both the Gibson ES-335 and his Strats and was using them in parallel. And both the Gibson and the Strat have a distinct sound. You can distinguish one from another when you hear them. This can perhaps be best heard in this recording of Ring That Neck, played for Granada TV in 1970, where you can hear he's playing Ring That Neck on his Gibson ES-335, and it has a distinctly more, you might say tinny, definitely sharper sound than an equivalent setting on the Strat. If you listen to this and then play it against something recorded later, but not much later in fact, this version of Lazy from 1971, where he's using a Strat, the songs are very similar in terms of their influence and style and structure, but the Strat gives a very subtly different sound, although played on the back pickup, so it's still quite sharp and tinny. It is distinct from the sound you hear in Ring That Neck we just played before. And so I wanted to see if I could mimic that sound. Now, that was the purpose in buying this guitar. Then I kind of consigned it to the back burner for years and years, until I got the Vox AC30 Ampeg mini amp that plugs into the jack. At that point, a couple of weeks ago, I thought, I wonder what this thing sounds like when you play it through that and through the Twin 12 speaker cabinet I've got just over there. And I was blown away because suddenly I realized why I bought this thing in the first place. It finally sounded like Blackmore's Gibson ES-335 in the recordings he did. It was remarkable to my ears. It's like, wow, okay, now I know why I bought this. So now you know the brief history behind my purchasing this guitar, why I did it, and why I'm suddenly making this video about it now. I guess I can avoid playing it no longer, although I've made the grotesque mistake of playing someone vastly superior to me, i.e. Richie Blackmore, before I actually had to launch into playing this myself, and my God, yeah, I'm not Richie Blackmore. But I'll try and give you an impression of the sound this gives so you can hear how it gives a very similar, if not identical, sound to the ES-335 when played through the Ampeg and through the Twin 12 speaker I've got here. Now, I've had to tape the controls on this into position because the jack on this Woolworths Audition guitar is pointing straight down, as many semi-acoustics are. They don't have into the front of the guitar jacks that the Strats do. But this means that my leg keeps nudging the controls every 5 minutes and knocking them out of position. So I've had to tape them into one setting for this recording. However, I'm going to be able to vary the sound by moving from the front to back pickups and using the volume control, much as I always intended to do with the Strats as well. And I suspect Blackmore basically wasn't fiddling with the amp too much when he was playing. He was basically doing his tone control in terms of the tone of the guitar, not literally the tone control, using almost exclusively the volume control and switching between pickups. So when I do this recording, I'm going to try and mimic that as best I can. And I will start with it on the rear pickup with a high volume so that you get a distorted sound similar to how we would play the introduction to Ring That Neck. From there, I'll move into different settings so you can hear some of the range that you can get from both the rear pickup and the front pickup. And you'll hopefully hear some hints at or something reminiscent of the different range of sounds and touch and play that Richie Blackmore would get when he was playing. Although obviously way, way worse. seems appropriate to end on a little bit of Mandrake Root. Kinda-ish. Anyway, I hope you appreciate why this guitar is quite versatile and why I got it in the end, and how good it can sound, even with my playing, through something equivalent to a Vox AC30 and the equivalent speaker cabinet. Anyway, I hope you join me in the next one. Until then, take care.